Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Truth About Marketing. I got my good friend, Chef Peter McQuaid here. He is the executive chef over at Americano here in Scottsdale, and he's also a former grand champion of Chopped. Peter, thanks for coming on with us.
What's going on, Colin? Happy to be here.
Very good, very good. Well, before we get started, we always do this lightning round. It's about 7-8 questions. There's no wrong answers. Just shoot it from the hip. Helps us jog this conversation and get things going. So you ready for that?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So your favorite business or marketing technology that you use?
We use Restaurant 365. Keeps all our numbers in lines, labor, food costs, and really helps us keep our business in check.
Awesome. Favorite social channel?
I'm all about Instagram. A bunch of chefs, you can post a bunch of videos, promote yourself, promote your restaurants. All my restaurants use it. It's a great tool to get out there.
Okay. And least favorite social channel, one you don't mess with that much?
Twitter. I don't mess with it. Don't need it. Never done anything for me. So that's one I can get rid of.
Very good. Very good. All right. A brand that you love?
A brand that I love. I'm in Arizona. I love Fox Restaurant Concepts. You see how they do all their branding, and it's just one of the kind of OGs here in the Valley, and I love what they're doing on their marketing and how they promote themselves.
Awesome. What about a brand that needs help? So someone that maybe needs a little bit of oomph.
Brand that needs help. It's, mom and pop restaurants nowadays. A lot of people don't really see the value in marketing themselves, and it's so important. So you see those little tiny kind of valley restaurants that, might want to get on the Instagram train.
Yeah, absolutely. Favorite influencer or business leader?
Favorite influencer, I'm looking at Christian Petroni's a chef, Joe Sasto's a chef, both guys that I know that just crush it on Instagram and have some really cool content.
Awesome. I'll have to check both of them out. And then brand
awesome.
or person you'd like to work with the most?
Brand or person I'd like to work with the most? I love Food Network. I've been on Food Network a couple times, and they've got a huge following. And I've been on their Instagram a couple times, but would love to see more, a little more push on that side. Why not?
Awesome. Well, you made it. Those are some good answers, and definitely some new ones, some fresh things that we haven't heard. So always love to hear that. But yeah, man, let's dig into it. So straight away, I always want everybody to understand like who the guest is, a little bit about them, how you got to where you are today. So fill us in.
Yeah, I started cooking at an early age, and it was the only thing I ever did. I was not good in high school. I went to Tempe Prep, a snooty prep school, and although I loved it and had great teachers that helped me out, I wasn't the smartest kid in class, didn't do my homework and didn't listen to my teachers, and fell in love with food and cooking, and then it was just kind of off to the races. I won a scholarship, went to culinary school. Nice. I started working for Chef Bo McMillan, who of course we all know and love, when I was 16 years old, and never looked back to this day. So it's been a wild ride.
Very good. I was just talking about, how you get started, and I just did a little short video on that, and it's crazy. So when you were coming out, like you said, you were 16, 17, whatever, like how did you meet Chef Bo, and was it right at a culinary? Like what was that kind of evolution story?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I just got, like I said, I fell in love with food in high school. I had to do a Spanish project. So I just was like, you know what? I love to eat. I love food. Like, why not just do it on the food? Because my teacher was like, you can do it on whatever you want. So I, messaged this local chef. Her name's Chef Silvana Salcido Esparza. She used to have the Barrio Cafe in Phoenix, and it's kind of a staple here in the Valley. So I went down to her restaurant. We made a couple recipes, and she offered me a job that week. And from there, I just, have worked in restaurants ever since. And she was the one that was like, look, you should reach out to Chef Bomac. He's at the Sanctuary at Elements. It's a little more, higher end, fine dining, and maybe it's good to kind of move your career. So I messaged Bo on Facebook probably 30 times. I still have the messages to this day until he said, get your ass down here and come work in the kitchen. And that's what I did. And the rest is history.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's that. It's so funny. People think that there's some like straight line path or like this worked or that worked. Sometimes, man, it's just wanting it more than other people, right? It's like writing those emails, writing those DMs, like just until someone answers you. Gary Vee's a big proponent of that, right? It's a numbers game. I can't find a job. Well, you only applied to 10 places, right? Apply to 1,000. I'm pretty sure you'll find a job.
100%. And, something instilled in me at a young age was persistence. And I think you have to don't let somebody not respond to you, keep bugging them until they get back at you. And that's something I did even with Silvana. I messaged her on Instagram a bunch of times till I finally was annoying her, and she was finally like, okay, you can come to your project at the restaurant. Same thing with Bone. He was like, okay, fine, coming down to the restaurant Sanctuary to see. And then, you never know what those relationships are going to bring, and what kind of that's how that's going to build your future.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so that being said, so you started doing that, and then how did you even end up on Chopped or getting that opportunity with Food Network? Because I mean, again, we were talking about it, Tobias Dorsen and some other people that have their careers just skyrocketed from it.
Yeah.
But it's a really unique opportunity to go get on there.
Sure. Yeah, after, when I started working for Bo, I went to culinary school and kind of did the whole, young chef deal, and then, came back here, worked at a few places. But, about 2 years ago, the producers reached out to me from Chopped, and they have headhunters that work on Instagram, actually. So I got an Instagram message from one of them like, hey, we like your content. We like what you're doing. Will you do a Zoom interview to be on the show? And I was like, yeah, of course I will. I've actually had a few of those messages in the past, and I never really felt confident to go on a Food Network show. But when I got this one, I was like, okay, it's Chopped. It's the OG kind of Food Network show. And I wanted to do it. So you got to go through a couple of Zoom interviews with producers and everything. And then once they pick you, they ship you out and you're in the competition.
Very good. And so what was that experience like? I mean, again, you're a young guy in your early 20s. And I mean, I'm sure there's other people on the episodes that have been working twice as long as you with twice as much experience. So tell us a little bit what it was like being on Chopped and having that whole Food Network experience.
Yeah, it was crazy. I love the pressure. And Chopped is just like you watch it on TV. You open a basket, they give you, a minute to look around the pantry, and then you're off to the races cooking. I was actually in a tournament, so it's called the Spin It to Win It tournament. So I was in the mix of 16 chefs, and I was actually the youngest guy in the whole group. So I kind of came in unassuming. I know they didn't, see a lot, and I looked like the young gun, but once I got in that competition, I couldn't stop winning, and then I took the whole thing home.
That's fantastic. Literally caught him by surprise, right? Underdog. They're like, oh, this young guy, he doesn't know what he's doing.
After my first round, I could see looks, and they were like, okay, he's one to watch for. You know what I mean? It was awesome.
Yeah. Very good. Well, so when it comes to marketing and business and things like that, right? So we talk about how that probably helped boost your career, right? I mean, you're getting a lot more visibility. People are knowing your name. And even in those circles, right? The people at Food Network are now like, God, this is our grand champion, right? So
100%.
talk a little bit about like what life was at like after that, because now you go from, busting your hump, like trying to just get an opportunity to now I'm sure you got a lot of things coming at you, right?
Yeah, I think even after that, they brought me back for another season of Chopped. I was on Chopped Legends, got out in dessert round, sadly, but it was a great experience. But, from that, first showing, they brought me back for another. Then I did another show and hopefully have a few more coming up too. So
very good.
It's really cool to kind of be in, and once you're in that circle and they notice you, it's really cool the things you can do. And I love competing, so I'm hoping to do more.
Awesome. Yeah. And so now talk a little bit about, you went from that, and again, these opportunities will still happen. You'll still be able, I'm sure you'll celebrity dinners or, charity dinners. I know I was with you when you auctioned one off, like things like that, which are awesome. The Starry Foundation, shout out to them, and Bobby, that was fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, you also now have your own projects and restaurants and other things that want to work with you. So talk a little bit about what you're working on right now.
Yeah, so right now I'm at the Americano. Just kind of came over here 8 months ago. We just kind of really revamped the menu and working hard with the team and, updating the culinary program and really pushing this restaurant. And then we opened a speakeasy underneath called Tell Your Friends, which is really fun. And so a lot of cool stuff all in one building, and it's just a fun place to come and dine and then hang out and listen to some music.
Yeah, if you haven't been and you're in Scottsdale to Americano and Tell Your Friends, it is a fantastic like date night, little small group action. It's super fun. Shout out to Johnny and Justin and Micus. Like those guys too have been involved in all that downstairs at Tell Your Friends. It's one of the most beautiful. I always tell people it reminds me of like Great Gatsby. You just walk downstairs, you're in like a whole nother environment, right?
You feel like you're in New York City. You know what I mean? You come and have dinner at the Americano, and then go downstairs for drinks and live music, and you feel like you're in another world. It's amazing.
Absolutely. It's literally like they dropped a little New York scene right in the middle of North Scottsdale. So
100%.
Love that. Cool. And so let's kind of switch gears a little bit. You talked a lot about Instagram. Like, what are some things like for other chefs, or at least, yourself, that you find are really successful as far as using that platform, to further your career or to just get people, awareness about what you're doing and the new things that you're creating?
Sure. I've always been pretty good with Instagram, and love putting out content and, showing off the restaurants and just stuff we're cooking here. But I think, it's something I'm getting into a little more just recently in my career, because I can see, how you can build so much just on that platform. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, look at chefs like Christian Petroni or Joe Sasto that put out, amazing videos every single day that are, I'm sure it takes a lot of production time to produce them, but they're great cooking videos. They're educational. People love them. And now you can see they're partnering with brands, and Joe Sasto has his own chips coming out, a whole new brand. And I know Christian Petroni works with a bunch of people. So I think just off that little platform, there's so much you can do as a chef to really show the world, what you're cooking without, even being in a restaurant.
Absolutely. And so from that perspective, I mean, and again, you talked about like that people that need help with marketing, which is your, small businesses, small restaurants, etc. I think it's really important to understand the dynamic that like with social media, you can reach so many people and all it takes is one post, right? It just takes one, reel or TikTok or YouTube short. And next thing you know, it's hundreds of thousands of views. Look at the guy that does the food reviews, right? He was a former UFC guy or whatever. He just absolutely blew up. And now people are begging him to come review the restaurant. Portnoy did it with the pizza reviews.
Yeah.
I just think for any business really, you got to remember, it just takes one post, one thing to make it pop off, right?
100%.
But for you as a chef and like talking to other chefs or people, again, Food Network ended up coming and calling and asking you, what do you think it was, or what do you think has been like kind of the most successful content or advice you would give to people creating to say, hey, like this is something that I saw really work?
Sure. I think you really just have to, get out there. I started posting on Instagram at a very young age and kind of built a little name for myself in the Valley. A lot of that was through Instagram and social media, just posting the dishes I'm cooking, posting where I'm at events, if I'm cooking somewhere or doing like we said, an auction at a dinner or kind of a festival or something like that. And I think at an early age, I just started posting my food and just throwing it out there. And a lot of people kind of caught on, and it just brought, so many opportunities for me, especially when I was younger, coming up in the industry.
Absolutely. So, for you personally, I mean, people follow styles, they follow cuisines, they follow like there's the one like the pasta queen, whatever. Like again, a lot of marketing. I don't know how much of a chef she is. Maybe she is. I don't know, but her content's always super good, right? She's engaging. She created her little catchphrases, like amazing. Do you kind of identify with any like one cuisine or another, or is there anything that's like influenced you that you're like, hey, I really try to model myself after this?
Yeah, in my career right now, I've had the blessing of opening up a couple restaurants. We had a restaurant in Vegas called Money Baby. I opened Kala as the executive chef in Old Town, and now at the Americano and Tell Your Friends. So all kind of diverse cuisines. So one of the most exciting things for me and right now in my career is working with so many foods and concepts and cuisine. So I don't really pigeonhole myself into one style. And I think that's kind of, the beauty of what I do now. But like you said, on Instagram and one thing that I've, learned from watching people is when you do have that kind of that niche, like again, I keep bringing up Joe Sasto, but he's like the pasta guy. So it's all his Instagram is filled with handmade pastas. He's rolling pastas on videos for Instagram tutorials. That's kind of his shtick. So I'd love to kind of the next step is figure out, what that is for me and really build that through social media like we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing is there's two ways to go about it, right? Like there's either you like niche down and so you say, hey, like I'm going to be the, pasta guy or the hamburger guy or the, steak guy, whatever it is, right? That's kind of one way to do it. The other way to go about it is to really try to, I mean, effectively you're boiling the ocean. I've always been somebody that it's like, if you're marketing to everybody, you're marketing to nobody. So the idea is like, you're better off to find a niche and really double down on it. However, I think with something like with certain industries or certain, again, like chefs, right? The versatility can also make you really, really valuable because it's almost a flip on its head where like all you know how to do is make pasta. Like this chef over here, you could drop him in any kitchen and he's a stud, right? And I think in your world, that's really impressive. So talk a little bit about what, that's like being in an environment where there are master chefs that are, again, famous in a certain cuisine, but then there's also the people that you just give them a few utensils and a fridge full of food and they'll whip up anything.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of my style too. I've never been, big on one cuisine or said, this is my specialty. I get the question all the time, what's your favorite thing to cook? And I'm like, I'm a chef. Like, what do you mean? I don't have one single dish I like to cook. I like to cook everything, experience or experiment with things. And I think, one thing with my style is, I like to cook on the fly. I think that's why I was so successful in the chopped kitchen.
Yeah.
And I'm versed in a lot of cuisine. So, put me behind a stove, give me a pair of tongs and a spoon, and I'll make it happen and show everybody what's up.
Very good. Is there anything that you don't like cooking or like doing? Because I mean, look, dude, I got to tell you, like in marketing, there's a lot of things that I do. Editing is probably like my least favorite thing just because it takes so much time, right? So
Sure.
there's got to be something you don't like to cook or don't like to mess with.
100%. Not even, I think, as far as cooking and food goes, I would say there's not much there. But when you get in the restaurants, one thing I don't like doing is sitting down and writing a recipe. Like it's that stuff in my career and job now as a chef that when you have to get into, analytics and recipe writing and organization as far as that, that's one thing I don't like doing, but you have to do
Yeah.
it to be successful, but is definitely the least favorite part of the job. I want to have a pile of ingredients and make a beautiful dish, but honing that in and tightening it up for the rest of your team and really, having a foolproof recipe is sometimes the tedious and, not the fun work for a chef.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think that that's very runs in parallel with a lot of people that are probably watching business leaders, marketers, whatever. Like it's the whole idea of scale, right? Like you start to get
100%.
to a spot where like you have to take your hands off the wheel, but in order to do that, you have to rinse and repeat, right? Again,
Yeah.
creating recipes that other people can create. I have to create process and procedures that other people can execute, right?
Yep.
It's not easy and it's not really fun, right?
Yeah.
But
It's
if I could
not
make
fun. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you could make 3 of me or 3 of you or whatever, like, you'd feel better about it, but you just can't.
100%.
So, talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about what it's like opening a restaurant, like, kinda what's the fun, what's the hard part, give people some insight on, like, what it's really like opening a restaurant from a chef's perspective.
Sure. I mean, I've even at a young age opened up, I guess, three restaurants, and, each two of them were kind of from the ground up, as the executive chef. And I got to build the teams, outfit the kitchens, place all the initial orders. And it was just such a cool experience and something really like a feeling you've never felt before, when you have to see a restaurant that's bare bones and then finally you get your team going and you're unboxing your
Yeah,
pots and your pans and then seeing them on opening night is such a crazy, rewarding, and exciting feeling that I've never shook, so I love that. And I think, a lot of people think chef and their food of, or their thoughts immediately go to cooking and food. But it's so much more to that. Like I was saying, there's recipes, there's back end, you got to manage labor, you got to manage numbers. Restaurants are such tight margins and tough businesses to make money in that if you don't manage that, you'll go out of business. So that's
right.
something that in my career more and more now is more of a focus and is a primary focus because we got to make money and, want to expand our brand and give people jobs and make more and build more restaurants. So that's really where the focus is. But sometimes as a chef, that's not always the strength or the part of the job that you love to do. So you got to
Yeah.
kind of you got to balance it, which I've been fortunate enough to to manage in my career, I think, pretty well.
For sure. And, again, being in the restaurant business, opening multiple restaurants, I think there's just like anything else, there's a major evolution of the way we're experiencing restaurants, like going out, all that. A lot of places are becoming very like experiential, right? Where it's like, to your
100%.
point, Americano, I mean, it's a full night. Like you go down, you get a really nice intimate setting, amazing food and drinks. Then you kind of go from there. And it's almost like concierge feel where like, somebody walks
Sure.
you down into this little speakeasy. You have like a really nice intimate time having drinks after. Talk a little bit about what it's like creating those experiences. And then also, again, you're having to create dishes and things that people remember, right? It's a very, very competitive place, especially in the bigger markets like San Francisco, LA, Scottsdale, Miami, New York. So talk about that and what that's kind of been like.
Yeah, I think people nowadays, like you said, diners, you want to go somewhere where you're going to be seen and have an experience. And a lot of it's visual. And like, we're talking about social media and marketing. Everybody wants a dish that they can post on their Instagram that other people see that are jealous of. They're like, I want to have
Yeah.
that tonight, and that's part of the fun. So definitely with creating menus and stuff at Americano and Tell Your Friends, it's kind of where we geared. We have a hand pulled mozzarella cart that comes right to your table here at the Americano where somebody's stretching fresh mozzarella curds right in front of you. Was a big kind of push for us. People were taking videos of it. It's kind of a signature deal on our menu. We're working on a dessert that we're lighting on fire at the table. Even downstairs, the cocktail program, our beverage director, her name's Ashley Cybor, has done some really cool cocktails here at Americano too. We have a cool martini that comes with a bump of caviar and an oyster, and it's kind of a cool Instagrammable cocktail and just like stuff like
Yep.
that. People love it, and you've got to push those really fun, iterations of dishes and drinks in a restaurant.
And do you find that to be particularly difficult? Because again, when you look around at restaurants that either have been around and like they have to innovate in order to stay alive, or you're looking at people that are trying new concepts, I always kind of say to myself, like, is it that hard to create those things, right? Like Instagrammable moments, if you will, which could be food or drinks, or it can just be the setting of the actual experience of the establishment. But like, what goes into that? Like, are you looking, where do you start? Like, how does it evolve? Kind of what happens to, again, use the one with the champagne and caviar, for example. Like, how do you even get to that?
Sure. I think, for us, some restaurants I think take it a little too much where it's, all about the show and not as much focus on the actual food product and the execution of the cocktails and the dishes. So I think we've always found a really good balance because at the end of the day, it's all about cooking, execution, and putting a hot, delicious plate in front of somebody. And then if you could splash in, some of those crazy theatrics, that's what we're all about. Like even look at Kala, for example. We put on the flaming saganaki,
Yep.
a couple months after opening, and that's literally a hot pan with cheese, and you pour brandy on it, it lights on fire. But everybody loves it, and they're on a Friday night, every single table is getting one. And I
Yep.
think just little things like that are still simple, delicious, but something that somebody can take a video or a picture of, they can just kind of take off through social media, and is really important nowadays in restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you, kind of what's on the horizon now? So you've opened a few restaurants. You are, you know, executive chef. You've been on Chop. What kind of goals or what do you see out in front of you right now?
Yeah, it's funny, I've never been a super forward thinker as far as goals. Of course I've always had, personal goals and career goals, but I've always been really, flexible and just kind of gone with the flow, in a sense, and really taken what's come at me and just kind of ran with it. So, sometimes I get asked, what's your 5-year, 10-year plan? I just don't think like that. I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing tomorrow. And I think that's kind of one of the fun things in my career and something that is, paid off, believe it or not. And, that's kind of where I'm at. As far as Americana, we're pushing some really fun things. We have a brunch program that's coming on. So we're doing a jazz brunch on March 30th. We're going to have a, saxophone player walking around. It's going to be all New Orleans style food and drinks, which is really fun. So
Very
right now,
cool.
just kind of, yeah, we're going to might bring a little bar competition down to tell your friends this summer and kind of push that, have a little bartender brawl or something. Haven't worked out all the details, but that could be really fun. So
Yeah.
right now it's really just kind of focusing on some of those aspirational events and bringing some fun stuff to the Valley.
Nice. Yeah. No, I mean, this scene's blown up quite a bit. I mean, everybody keeps equating it to the idea that like it's an LA light or a Vegas light, or because I mean, look, we
I
just
think
got
so, yeah.
Elefante, we just got Catch. I mean, like those are all big, like national. I don't want to say chains because I mean, they are, but they're
Yeah,
nationally
big group.
recognized and very well known. Yeah, exactly. So I think, Scottsdale is just it continue. We say it every year, but I've been here for 8 years now. But like it's continuing to blow up, and it's just a hot spot for again culinary, for craft cocktails, for nightlife, hotels. I mean, all of it. It's pretty amazing. What would your advice be to people who are just getting started, or maybe again trying to find a new place in a new city or work with someone like
Sure.
yourself? When you're hiring people, what are you looking for and what can people expect?
Sure. I think when I look for guys on my team, and whether it's a sous chef, a line cook, to a dishwasher, I'm looking for passion and hard work. You want someone that's going to come in every day and work as hard as they can for the restaurant. And I think that's really important nowadays. Hiring can be tough, especially in the culinary world. It's changed a lot in the past couple of years, but there's still a lot of amazing chefs and great people out there. And if you have a passion for food and a willingness to put the hours in and do the hard work, you're welcome with open arms, anywhere here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those. Obviously, it's a lot of long hours, right? Awkward hours in
Yeah.
terms of like you don't have the standard 9 to 5, right? So it's hard to find good people that are also willing to sacrifice their Fridays, their Saturdays, their Sundays. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah,
very unique.
you're
Go ahead.
working
Yeah.
holidays, you're working weekends, you're a lot of restaurants are open on Christmas Day. You're not seeing your family, and it's a tough kind of pill to swallow. But I think, eventually it pays off in the end. And if you have a passion for and a love for food and cooking, it's kind of what you got to do to, excel in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that you would say or advise like kind of against? And it's again, my example would be like, people say, take on as many internships and as many. I wasn't so much into that. Like, yes, I think you should like do some unpaid work and you should like have mentors and advisors and things like that. But I ultimately am not the guy that's sitting there saying like, do everything for free. Like, listen, learn, educate yourself, maybe have some side internships or side things, but
Sure.
you should be able to earn, for your work and your time. What would that be equivalent for you?
Yeah, I totally agree. When I went to culinary school, I started working. I worked while I was in school because I think, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to culinary school, which is the reason why I went. Culinary school is so expensive. So I think
Yeah.
for kids, you can learn more just working in restaurants, than, if you have to take out a loan or put your family in financial, hardship or risk to go to culinary school. I don't think it's worth it because you learn
Yeah.
so much, boots on the ground working in restaurants. But when I was in culinary school, I worked at one of the best French restaurants in the country, Restaurant Danielle, in New York City, which was paid. So I was going to school. I had a paid
Nice.
job, but then on Sunday, Danielle was closed, and I would go intern at all the other restaurants that were open, 11 Madison Park, Jean George, and I would just walk in the door and say, "Hey, can I stage today?" and just work for free for the evening because you learn so much seeing that. But I
That's
still had
awesome.
a full time job. You know what I mean? So it's kind of exactly what you're saying. I don't think and I think those days are those days are over for restaurants. Where it's the unpaid internships and all that kind of stuff. And I think people still got to make money and live their lives, but also if you have the opportunity to go hang out somewhere for a day for free, go do it because there's so much you're gonna see.
That's awesome. And actually, like so stodging, I'm assuming is basically like a puddle jumper for a flight attendant. You just come in, do work for a day, and then you can bounce or whatever, right? I'm assuming
Yeah,
that's what
you
that
work
is.
for a day, you leave. It could be 2 days, a week, one day, kind of
Right.
whatever the restaurant does. But that's what I did. And you just saw so much food, met so many people, different chefs, and just to be in that kind of world in New York City in those kitchens and just see how they operate for a day, I think really kind of just opened my eyes to the world of food and really benefited me.
It's so funny because I'm obviously there was a few episodes of it. Like I'm like most people watch The Bear, right? So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
get kind of that
100%.
insight. Yeah, and I forget the names, but the one guy who was basically doing like the food running and basically operations manager in the kitchen, same thing. Like he went and worked at that one restaurant for a few weeks or whatever,
Yeah,
and it was amazing because in the show, like it was invaluable for him. Like he was used to their Chicago style, like, kind of complete chaos. And then he went into a
yeah.
place that he really learned how to control the chaos. So I think that was a fantastic kind of metaphor for what people should be doing. Like every day, go learn, go see something else, get a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the culinary world is so transient, and I think people, get bored of a place and then leave or, bounce around. And I think, kind of like we're saying, you still want to find that one home or that one mentor or, somewhere where you're going to learn where you can stake it for a couple of years. I think, people don't realize how invaluable that is. And, I think you can go around and see other things, but, my other advice is don't bounce around to 5 restaurants in a year. Stay somewhere where you can see, making a name for yourself and excelling and, growing with the company. And, that's where you're really going to learn a lot too, working through the kitchen for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever it is. And where you can really kind of expand your, your experience rather than just going from place to place to place.
Absolutely. When you were looking, I mean, obviously you talked a little about a couple of your mentors. Was there anything that you were looking for when you were trying to find that, whether it was internship or first role or again, seeking out a mentor like Chef Bo, like what were you looking for in a mentor or like, what would you advise people to look for?
Sure. I mean, really, I've always just wanted to work, with people, around people, and for people that, I admired and would want to be like, when I further my career. And one of those people for me was Chef Bo. Chef Bo is one of the biggest, names in the food world, especially here in Arizona. And, when I was younger, I, watched him on Iron Chef and Next Iron Chef. And so it was really cool to work in the kitchen with him and everything he was doing. And I was like, I want to aspire to be like that one day. So that's where I'm going to go and work. And then it, kind of paid off, obviously. And now we're doing stuff together, which is amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, Iron Chef, the original OG Iron Chef with the horrible
Yeah,
lip syncing and that was my favorite, man, back in the day.
yep,
The
so good.
Haki-san, yeah, he was so good. Cool. Well, so we talked a little bit about kind of what your future, and you're not huge on the foresight and planning, but is there any like events or anything you got coming up that we should all be aware of or put on?
Just a bunch of stuff here at Americano, kind of like I said. So check us out on social, on the website. We have some really fun stuff coming, and I'm going to be here cooking and a lot of creative events that we're trying to push. So would love to see some happy faces here, and then kind of summertime's obviously approaching, which is always tough in Arizona. But then a lot of those culinary events come back in the fall, and we'll do it all again and see everybody there too. So I'm excited.
Very good, man. Well, I appreciate it. It was awesome chatting with you. Again, everybody here, check out Chef Peter McQuaid. Legend, young guy, awesome, killing it here in Scottsdale. If you're out here, check out Americano and tell your friends. 2 amazing establishments. Peter, love you. Talk to you soon, buddy.
You're the best, Colin. Love you, brother.
You got it.